Hi, everyone. Happy Thursday. I'm here to basically go over ergonomics and how important it is. It seems like from the chat already, a lot of you have already incorporated ergonomics into your current workstation, but we're just going to go over the specifics a little bit more, and I'm going to talk about it with my PowerPoint presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll turn off my, see. All right, so let's hear. The power of ergonomics, fitting your workstation to you. Again, my name is Julie Ramsey. I work in the Office of Risk Management. And basically ergonomics is one of the duties that I do. I do ergonomics. I work with AEDs, and I also work with incident injuries throughout campus. But basically ergonomics is extremely important. And I feel like as time has moving forward, more and more people are more interested in ergonomics. There's more and more people that are getting stand-up workstations, and there's a lot of equipment and a lot of changes throughout the years in what people are doing at their workstations. So I've got my email address on here. I've also got my phone number and our website. If you're not familiar with it, I would recommend going to our website. We've got a whole section on ergonomics. There's some helpful tips there. There's even a pamphlet that I think Patricia is going to eventually include in the chat. It goes over information all about ergonomics. So, and if you've gone through that information, if you still have questions or you feel like you need an ergonomic evaluation, what you would do is fill out the form on our website that says submit an ergonomic evaluation. And then basically I would come out and evaluate your workstation based on your individual setup. So let's go ahead and get started here. The definition of ergonomics. Ergonomics is the science of designing the job to fit the worker rather than forcing the worker's body to fit the job to reduce and or prevent work-related musculoskeletal disorders and injuries. So basically, long story short, by arranging your workstation to make it fit to you, rather than you having to fit to the workstation is what's most important. A lot of times people will move into a new workspace or someone else's old workspace, and they'll just go with whatever's there at the actual workstation. So what I recommend is making it individual, making it work for you. You should not have to adjust to the actual workstation itself. You want to make the workstation adjust to you individually. So adjusting rearranging the workstation to make it work for you is the most important part of that. And then also changing your habits. If you're one of those who likes to put your feet up underneath your chair, if your feet are dangling, if you're leaning to one side, a lot of those habits can make a big difference, in your workstation and how you feel at the end of the day. Over time, if you don't adjust some of those habits, it definitely will have a negative impact on your body, on your muscles, can range from your fingers to your hands to your feet. So I do see a lot of people that may sit on their legs, sit on their feet. Their feet are dangling in their chair. They lean to one side. Those are just all habits that can be adjusted to improve your ergonomics workstation. Also, using adaptive tools and equipment. These are the chair, the keyboard, the mouse, anything like that you can adjust, the monitors to make it work for you as an individual. So basically, these three things are what's going to make the biggest difference in improving your workstation. Again, I mentioned musculoskeletal disorders or injuries. These are disorders and injuries of the soft tissues, and this can be muscles, tendons, ligaments, joints, and cartilage, and also the nervous system. And it's basically from repeated motion, repeated day in, day out of things like typing on the keyboard, clicking your mouse, staring at your monitors, sitting in your chair. All of those things over time can contribute towards these type of disorders or injuries. So it can develop over weeks, months, or years. And the actual signs or symptoms of this can be pain, numbness, tingling, stiff joints, difficulty moving, and also even muscle loss. So these are things that if you don't set yourself up at a good workstation from the beginning, Unfortunately, sometimes you can have these sort of things happen, not necessarily all the time, but it is something that I've seen that can affect a lot of people in the years that I've been doing the ergonomic evaluations and talking to people and going to their offices, things like that. So basically, if your physical capabilities are not matching the physical requirements of the job, that's when you need to assess if you haven't already assessed your workstation. The cost of musculoskeletal disorders, got some facts here that I pulled up. It's from a few years ago. I haven't done one in the last year or two, but these are basically numbers that I pulled up saying that 34% of all lost workday injuries and illnesses are because of this, because of musculoskeletal disorders. There's a lot of time that people are spending away from work because of it. It can affect you physically, mentally, emotionally. I mean, there's so many different ways that having this type of disorder or pain can affect you. It affects your quality of life. So reviewing your workstation from the start, finding what works for you, rearranging your workstation can minimize these type of things from happening. Basically, $1 out of every $3 is spent on this type of injury for workers' compensation. There's a lot of people that not only take time off of work because of it, they end up having to go to physical therapy, they end up having to see the doctor, they end up having surgery. So these are type things that if we can prevent them ahead of time by setting up your workstation, it can eliminate a lot of money being spent, a lot of workers' comp claims, and a lot of people being affected on a daily basis from their injuries and affecting their work every day. So I've seen a lot of people that have to take a lot of time off work. Some people, ended up having to take leave of absences. So because they were not familiar with what was causing their illnesses or their disorders from their muscles. So these are things that if we can, like I said, if we can prevent them ahead of time, it can make a big difference for a lot of people in the future. This is basically a couple pictures that I've found about computer ergonomics and how you should be sitting, how your workstation should be adjusted for you. I've also got, like I mentioned before, we've got this pamphlet with these pictures that is actually available on our website. So it goes over these. It has some good tips as far as how you should be sitting, where your feet should be, where your arms and hands should be. So you can look through this and see basically if you can adjust your workstation to be more like this versus what it's at now, it's going to make a big difference for you. So like I said, your back needs to be supported. Your head and neck need to be in line with your torso. You need to be facing forward. A lot of people may be twisting to the side, leaning to one side or the other. If you have multiple monitors, that's something that you need to pay attention to as well. Figuring out which monitor is your primary monitor and have that adjusted directly in front of you. Any other monitors should be slightly off to the side as close as possible. So those are all things that you can basically look at, from your monitors to your chair, to your desk, to where your feet are. These are all things that can make a difference in your workstation and preventing any musculoskeletal disorders. So there's a couple different ones sitting. The next one is basically standing desk ergonomics. A lot of you have standing desk. I actually have one that I'm standing at right now. I use my stand-up desk multiple times on a daily basis. And bottom line is, the more you can change your position throughout the day, the more you can change from sitting to standing, moving around, taking a break, the better it's going to be for you overall, rather than just staying in one seated position all day, every day. So a lot of people have these standing desks. A lot of you like them. Some people I've found do not like them. But it basically is good for you to change your position throughout the day. You want to make sure that your legs, your torso, and your neck and your head are all in line. You want to be in a vertical position, obviously, with your feet slightly apart. You also want to make sure, if you don't have one, an anti-fatigue mat is extremely helpful for you to stand on. It's basically a cushioned comfortable mat, usually like a foam or rubber, something like that, that's pretty good thickness, and makes it more comfortable for you to stand on rather than just standing on the hard floor. So basically, you also want to make sure that your arms are in a 90-degree angle when you're standing at your desk. You want to make sure that the top of the monitor is right about eye level, or your eyes are just below the top of the monitor. So there's different things that you can do sitting and standing just to change your position and improve your posture, improve your ergonomic setup at your workstation. Again, there's lots of different things that you can do with your workstation to adjust it to make it work for you. The height, that can be the height of the desk, that can be the height of the chair. The backrest, basically making sure that you have some support in the back of your chair. And that also goes into lumbar support. A lot of the chairs have you can see in this chair, it's got a bar that goes across in the back that basically provides additional lumbar support. You can adjust that to increase your lumbar support for your chair. Also, the seat depth. A lot of chairs should have a lever. It's usually, if you're facing the back of the chair, if you stand up and turn around and look at your chair, the right side, most of the chairs have an adjustment you can lift up, and it'll pull the seat pan in and out. So it'll pull the seat pan out, which is the bottom of the seat, and that makes it either further or closer to the back of the chair itself. So that is actually one of the biggest adjustments that I've found that a lot of people are not familiar with. So if you have a chair that does that, if you feel like you're too close to the back of the chair or too far away from the back of the chair, you can adjust that. A lot of people are familiar with the actual height setting of the chair, but that's usually as far as it goes. I find that there's a lot of other adjustments that people are not familiar with or how to adjust them. Also, the armrest. The armrests, you should be able to adjust those up and down. Some of them even pivot in and out, forward, backward. Those are things that you can rest your arm on. You can rest your elbow. It provides some additional support for your arms so that you're not just having to hold your arms up when you're sitting at your chair. So those are some of the adjustments. Some other ones are basically the distance, like the distance from you and to your monitor, the distance from you to your keyboard. Those are important. You want to make sure that your keyboard is not too far away from you. Also, your monitor should be an arm's length or less away from you. If you're further than an arm's length away from your monitor, it's too far away. So I would suggest moving that closer to you, so you're not having to try and figure out what's on your screen, or you're not having to make your print bigger. You don't want to be too far away from the actual monitor itself. Also, the height, once again, the height, just like the height of the chair, the height of the monitor is extremely important as well. You want to make sure that the height of the monitor, that your eye level, if you're looking forward in a neutral position, your eye level should be right about the top of the monitor or just below, is what we normally recommend for monitor height. And finally, the lighting in the room, overhead lighting. A lot of people I've found through visiting them in their offices tend to either dim the lighting or sometimes have no lighting. And then they would use like a desk lamp or a floor lamp for like a softer lighting. I find that a lot of people are more comfortable with that and seem to enjoy that lighting more so than the overhead lighting. Sometimes the overhead fluorescent lights can be a little bit much, and people can get migraines, headaches, neck aches from the overhead lighting. Not everyone, but sometimes that can be an issue. So that's something that you can look at as well. I, for instance, have a desk lamp. Some people have floor lamps. If you have multiple settings for your overhead lights, maybe turning one on and one off instead of both on might provide some adjustments for that. But basically, there's a lot of different things that you can adjust and you can do at your workstation to improve it and make it work for you. We're just going to go over some of the most common pains that people seem to have from workstation. So first and foremost, neck pain. It could be from poor positioning of the computer monitor height. If the monitor is too high or too low, you may be looking up or looking down throughout the day, and you want to keep your head in a neutral forward position. And like I said, your eyes need to be right about the top of the monitor or just below that. So like I said, if you're looking at a monitor that's way too high, you're going to notice that your head is going to be leaning up all the time. And over time, that can create neck pain. So that's something to look at if you can adjust your monitors. If your monitors are not, if you're not able to adjust them, you could have some sort of a stand to put it on to make it higher. As far as lower, there's not really a lot that you can do that unless you're able to lower your desk at all, or lower your chair. So monitor height is extremely important. Also the distance from the monitor, if you're too far away, like I mentioned, if you're more than an arm's length away from your monitor, you're too far. So I would recommend moving your monitor closer. Also, if your documents on the screen are in small font, you can increase the font size. You can adjust the font size. You can adjust the lighting. There's lots of things that you can actually do with your display on your monitor itself to make it work for you. So like I said, if you're having to squint and look at the screen, I would try either moving the monitor closer to you and or increasing the font size on the screen. You may have to look into a pair of readers or glasses if you don't have those. That might be something to consider as well, so that you're not straining your eyes, because that also can create neck pain, headaches, all kinds of other issues as well. You need to make sure that your head and your neck are not in line with your torso when you're seated. I'm sorry, if they're not in line, they need to be in line. Sorry, I said that wrong, but just make sure that when you're seated, everything is in line with each other. Your head, your neck, your torso, everything needs to be vertical. And then your legs need to be in a 90-degree angle. So when you're sitting in your chair and you're scooted up to your workstation, pay attention to that. Take a look and see if you're leaning forward, if you're putting your elbows on your desk, if you're not utilizing the back of your chair. Those are all reasons that can actually end up with you having some sort of a neck pain, neck discomfort, headaches. So keep an eye on that to make sure that you're actually sitting properly. Some people, like I mentioned earlier, tend to maybe put their feet up underneath their chair. Those are all things that can change your position when you're sitting at your workstation. Copying notes from a book or document. If you're looking off to the side or if you're looking down all the time, that's something that you can get a document holder. You can get a document stand so that you're not looking down. You can be looking more in front of you, closer to your monitor rather than looking down or away. There's lots of different document stands, document holders that you can get. They can attach to the side of your monitor. They can sit right in front of your monitor. There's a lot of different things that can make it easier for you so that you're not having to look down all the time or look away. If you're trying to copy something or read something, just make it easier for you. And one of the most important things that I will mention a lot from here on out is not taking rest breaks. If you're not taking rest breaks, that in itself can create pain, discomfort in pretty much any area of your body. So rest breaks are important. The first thing I do when I ask someone, when I go for an ergonomic evaluation, I ask them if they're taking breaks throughout the day. Are you taking a break? It doesn't have to be a lengthy break, but basically, if you're not taking breaks throughout the day, if you're not getting away from your desk, if you're not getting away from your desk at lunch, standing up, walking around, you need to start doing that. Those are important. Like I said, it can be 5 minutes. It can be 2 minutes down the hall. It could be standing up and looking away from your monitor, but not taking a break. If you're sitting there all day and every day and not getting up and moving around, that could be the first and foremost reason you're having discomfort or pain. So that's something that you definitely want to look at. The next one is shoulder pain. Most likely that can be from the positioning of your armrest. if you're not using the armrest to support your arms, you're going to have shoulder pain. And that's because you're having to support your arms and hold your arms up rather than using the armrest. I know I've heard some people that have said they wanted to remove their armrest from their chair. I would never recommend doing that because I feel like they're extremely important at your workstation to have that support for your arms. So if you can position them to the height, to the position that they're close to you where you can use your armrest to support your arms, I would highly recommend that if you're not doing that already. Also, keyboard and mouse positioning. You want to make sure that your keyboard and your mouse are close to you, that you're not having to lean forward, you're not having to reach for them. They need to be close to you so that you're not having to constantly make an effort to reach out to get your monitor or to get your mouse. They need to be close to you. And I do find that a lot of people will have their keyboard further from them and their mouse too far away, and even their mouse too far from their keyboard. So those are things you want to keep an eye on as far as where they're positioned at your workstation. And the last one, once again, we talked about not taking breaks. Taking rest breaks is extremely important. If I can't stress that enough, just getting away from your desk throughout the day is extremely important. Wrist pain. I feel like a lot of people suffer from wrist pain, whether it be from your mouse, whether it be from your keyboard. It can be from basically the hard surface of the desk. I know someone chimed in earlier saying that they had a gel wrist rest. Those are available. You can get those. You can get those pretty much from Amazon, anywhere. Just some sort of gel wrist rest to support your wrist on rather than the hard surface of the desk or the edge of the desk. You can also get them for your mouse as well. You can have a gel wrist rest for your mouse. So that might be something to look into if you don't have one of those already, just to make it more comfortable for you and your wrist. It can be basically where you're positioning your arms on the keyboard. If you're constantly resting your arms on the keyboard in a certain way, and your wrist and your arm are not in a parallel position, that can be part of your issue with wrist pain as well. I find that a lot of people tend to suffer from wrist pain, carpal tunnel, all kinds of things like that related to your wrist area. Taking breaks, moving around your hands, your wrist, some exercises, things like that are good for you to do for your wrist as well. Taking breaks, like I said, taking a break from actually using the mouse and using the keyboard for hours and hours. When people are doing that, those are the people that I tend to find that are having the most discomfort and pain in their wrist area. So those are things to look at as well as far as wrist pain. More people tend to have it with their mousing hand than not. And there are different mice that you can get. You can get an ergonomic mouse that may be more comfortable for you. That may help with that. You can also get an ergonomic keyboard, which may help you as well. So those are other things that you can try out to help with that as well. Back pain. A lot of people I hear talking about their back is bothering them. They have lower back pain. That can be from, any number of reasons, but I have found that if you're sitting in your chair, if you're using the back of your chair for lumbar support, if you've got some sort of lumbar support in your chair, that definitely will help with that. Also, if you're too far from the screen, sometimes you may end up leaning forward and not utilizing the back of your chair. So that's important. Pay attention to that, how you're sitting in your chair. If you're actually utilizing the back of your chair, if you've adjusted your seat pan, which is the bottom part of the chair, if you're too far away, maybe scoot that back a little bit closer to the back of your chair so that you're able to utilize the lumbar support in the back of the chair. Because your positioning of your body may change if your chair is not adjusted correctly. So look at that first and foremost, and then also scoot closer up to your workstation and move your monitor closer to you if it's too far away. Move your keyboard, move your mouse, any of those things. If they're too far away, that could be causing part of your issue as well. Your keyboard, like I said, your keyboard and your mouse position, those can be adjusted. Your monitor, like I mentioned earlier, you want to make sure that you're not more than an arm's distance away. If you are, your monitor is too far away from you. So that can be adjusted as well. Again, chair settings, those are the most important as far as your ergonomic setup. Knowing how to adjust your chair. There are a lot of chairs that actually, the newer chairs have a QR code on them. If you look underneath the armrest, I think it's usually on the right-hand side. Some of them have a QR code that you can actually scan, and it goes over the settings of the chair and how to adjust that. There are a lot of different settings for a lot of different chairs, depending on what chair you have. And it can be overwhelming. So if you don't know how to adjust your chair, see if there's a QR code, see if there's a website that goes over the adjustments for the chair. And if all else fails, if you need help adjusting your chair, you can give me a call, you can fill out the form for an ergonomic evaluation, and I can come and review your workstation. And once again, we have the not taking rest breaks. If you're not taking breaks throughout the day, if you have a stand-up workstation and you can change your position throughout the day, that can make a big difference as well. I would recommend, if you have a stand-up station, to utilize it. Stand up as much as you can throughout the day, usually in shorter intervals. I would say I normally don't stand for more than 30 minutes, an hour at the most, and then I'll change it back to sitting position. So I just rotate it throughout the day, but there's no magic number for that. It's basically whatever works for you. So if you have a stand-up station, just incorporate it into your day on a daily basis. Anything other than that, I would recommend just doing what works for you. Leg pain. You can have leg pain from the actual chair itself. If the design of the bottom of the chair is not working for you, sometimes basically if your leg is, if where your leg folds, your knee underneath, if it's hitting up against the back of your chair, I would adjust the seat pan so that you have a little bit of a gap between the back of your knee and the bottom of the chair. So you want to have a little bit of a, usually at least a couple fingers. You want to be able to put between the back of your knee and the chair. That way, when you're sitting, you have a little bit of a break between the chair and your leg. Because if your chair is basically where your leg and your knee come together there, if you're sitting there and your knee is rubbing against the back of the chair, then it could cause issues and discomfort with your legs. So adjusting the chair, like I said, the seat pan adjustment, the height of the chair can alter that and make it more comfortable for you. A lot of people, like I said, don't know how to adjust the chair. So that's first and foremost. Just paying attention to the actual chair itself when you're sitting, and making sure that your feet are touching the floor. If they're not touching the floor, I would recommend using a footrest, because you don't want to have your feet dangling from the chair, and you don't necessarily want to have your feet tucked up underneath the chair, because that also can create some discomfort and pain in your leg, your feet, as well. So, and again, not taking rest breaks. If you're not getting up and standing throughout the day, even if it's just to stand up at your workstation, you don't even have to leave your office. Just stand up, take your eyes off the monitor, just take a break. Eye strain. Eye strain can be caused from the bright lighting. We talked about the fluorescent lighting. Sometimes people dim those or turn them off. It can be behind you. Maybe if the light is coming behind you on your screen, you could adjust that by basically adjusting the lighting. You can adjust the actual dimness of the screen, the monitor screen. You can even get a cover for the monitor screen, which would be like an anti-glare screen. A lot of people have those as well, kind of sometimes referred to as like a privacy type screen, but it can reduce the glare of the actual monitor brightness. So you can adjust the font size, you can adjust the contrast, and you can adjust the brightness of your monitor screen. And those can all make a big difference as far as, you know, reducing or eliminating eye strain. Also, not taking eye breaks. I usually like to recommend, if I do an ergonomic evaluation, I'll mention the 20-20-20 rule, which is basically every 20 minutes, look at something 20 feet away for 20 seconds. So if that's something that you can kind of keep in mind, even if you don't do it every 20 minutes, if you think about it throughout the day, maybe you can try and work that into your day, if not at least a few times a day. Because I know it's probably not feasible for you to do it every 20 minutes. But that is something to keep in mind, just basically looking away from your monitor for 20 seconds. Focus on something else in the room for 20 seconds that's 20 feet away. And that will help to minimize your eye strain from just staring at the computer monitor. Also, sometimes people try blue light glasses. They can help as well, just to reduce or minimize the eye strain. And if you're not blinking often enough, you may not notice that when you're staring at the computer, you may not blink very often. Paying attention to that and maybe purposely making yourself blink a little bit more often throughout the day to refresh your eyes, because you can get dry eye from that. And that's just basically from overuse of just staring at the monitor on a daily basis. So those are all things that can help to either reduce or minimize or hopefully prevent eye strain from even happening altogether from you at your workstation. And in summary, basically one size does not fit all. That can be the chair, that can be the monitor, that can be, basically it just refers to your overall workstation. You want it to make it work for you. It may not work for the person down the hall, the person in the office next to you, but you want to make it work for you. If you have a chair that you're sitting in that someone else had before you, I mean, it may have been good for them, but it may not necessarily work for you. So my suggestion is to try out something different, try moving some things around, try a different chair, try do some adjusting with your workstation, because you want to make it work for you and you only. All right, so that's the end of my presentation. So now we can do questions if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, so we have first question that came through is if there's someone in Jacksonville that can assess a workspace.
There is not. If you're a UF employee, there is not. Basically, I'm the only one that does the ergonomic evaluations. I have done some via Zoom, so I would be happy to try and do that on Zoom. Basically, as long as I can see your workstation and you have a phone that you can we can look at your workstation together, I can try and make as much improvements as possible.
Okay. Two people mentioned that they primarily use laptops, and because of this, they can't have both the monitor at eye level and the 90-degree angle for typing. So do you have any tips for laptop users?
I usually recommend not using a laptop at your workstation on a daily basis. If you do have to use a laptop, I would recommend putting it up on a stand to make it higher. I also would recommend using a separate keyboard so that you're not trying to type in the keyboard because you've raised your laptop. You want to have the laptop at a eye level, same as you would with your computer monitor, if at all possible. I do see people that have monitors and they also have a laptop as well. So I usually try to get them to match the laptop up to about the same height as where the monitors are as well, so that you can so you're not looking up and down all the time. So.
Someone mentioned that the armrests are too wide apart to place both arms on and type. So is there a way to adjust those?
Some of them adjust in, so you can adjust them closer to your body. Unfortunately, all of them don't do that. So if you're unable to use your armrest, you might want to see if there's another chair available that you could use your armrest. Unfortunately, all of the chairs do not have adjustable armrests that come in closer to your body. Majority of them adjust up and down, but some of them don't come closer. That may mean the chair may be a little bit too big for you. And if there's another chair that you could try, so you could get the arms in closer and have a smaller, smaller area to try and maneuver those in, that would be helpful. So unfortunately, it's some of the chairs are just like that. I would do the best you can to see if they adjust in, and if not, maybe if it becomes an issue, I would see if there's some other chairs in the department that you could maybe try out or switch out with.
Okay, the next question is, do blue light blocking glasses actually help?
Some people, yes. Some people have said that they don't help. That's once again a totally individual thing. I have seen a lot of people that have them and like them. I would probably recommend just trying them out. They're not very expensive. Just buy an inexpensive pair and try it out and see if it works for you. Like I said, some people love them, some people are not fans of them. So it definitely would be worth a try, especially if you're having some sort of eye strain or eye discomfort, things like that.
Okay, the next question is, what are your thoughts on walking treadmills at workstations?
I'm not a fan of those. I don't recommend them because there's so many other things that can happen from having a walking treadmill at your workstation. That's not something that I would approve purchasing. If your department wants to purchase that for you, that's up to the department. But me dealing with accidents and injuries as well as ergonomics, people have fallen off of them. People have lost their balance, stepped off the side, gotten caught up, tripped on the cord. There's lots of different things that can be created from having a treadmill as a workstation. So I personally would not recommend them. I think if you want to take a walk, I would suggest leaving your workstation and going outside and going for a quick walk or walk around the building.
And along the same lines, there was a follow-up question about balance boards with standing desks.
I'm not familiar with that. I don't know. Is that like the ball sort of thing, maybe? I try to keep it simple. I mean, honestly, with a standing desk, you really want to be in a standing position. You want to make sure that your torso, your head, your neck, everything is all in line. Um, I've seen some people that have different sort of setups for when they're standing at their workstation. I do recommend, like I said, like I mentioned earlier, is having a mat to stand on, an anti-fatigue mat. But other than that, that would probably be the only thing that I would recommend.
Do you have any recommendations for chairs for short people?
I don't have a specific brand or type that I normally recommend, because there's so many options out there and there's so many different available chairs. There are a couple places here in Gainesville that I'm happy to provide that information with, as far as chairs. I know EOC, I think I'm sorry, OEC. They have a showroom. So, and UF has a contract with OEC. There's also another place in Gainesville. It's I just got someone came by to visit me. There's another place here in Gainesville too, but they don't have a showroom. But basically there's the showroom I recommend for anyone who's looking to get a new chair, to go out there and sit in the chairs and try them out and find one that works for you. Even if you don't necessarily buy from them, it's a good idea to kind of find what works for you, because there's so many different options available. And I really don't get into recommending specific types or brands or kinds, because there's so many out there and they're always coming out with new ones. So like I said, OEC, I know probably a lot of you have seen their vehicles on campus delivering office furniture. That's something, like I said, they have a showroom and I'd be happy to provide that address to you, and where you can go and basically try out some chairs and find one that works for you.
That's something that either the department, if there's funds available, can purchase for them, and if there's not funds available, then you would have to purchase it
Correct.
yourself.
Yes. Yeah, all of the chairs, anything that you would need to improve your office environment, setup, workstation would be provided from your department itself. So that's something that I would reach out to your department if you're needing a chair, and that's something that if you could go out and go to OEC and basically try out a chair out there and sit in them and find one that works for you. I don't normally recommend buying a chair online because you don't know if it's going to work for you. And then at that point, you've already ordered it, you've already had it delivered. And then if it doesn't work, then you have to figure out how to send it back at that point. So.
How would you treat a shared desk or workspace?
A shared desk or workspace. A shared desk definitely would be a little bit more difficult, especially if it was a stand-up desk. But I would say if you have a shared workspace, you're not necessarily at the same desk. That would be a lot easier to work with. Basically, you're going to have to depend on the adjustments of your chair to make the desk work for you if you've got more than one person sitting at that desk. So you want to make sure that your chair is adjustable and you know how to adjust it. And basically, I mean, I've seen people that have basically switch in and out from the same desk. So you're constantly having to move the monitors and move the chair on a daily basis because what worked for the person who was there that morning may not work for you that afternoon. So there's definitely, that's a good time to make sure that you know how to adjust your chair and how to adjust your monitor and how exactly it needs to be to work for you. So it's very much an individual thing. So like I said, if you need, we have some guidelines on our website, also in the pamphlet that I know you, Patricia, was sending out the link for that goes over information on where to adjust your monitor to, where to adjust your chair to, things like that.
Okay, we have someone who says they get up multiple times a day to walk, but their feet and ankles are still always swollen at the end of the day. So do you have any other suggestions to reduce that?
Um, If you're getting up and taking breaks throughout the day, if you're able to change your position throughout the day, maybe try some more, maybe some specific exercises, some different movements for your feet, your legs, things like that. Also, if you don't have a anti-fatigue mat, you want to make sure that you have that, if you are using a standing desk. But other than taking breaks and changing your position throughout the day, I don't really know how else you can adjust that, if you're still having legs or foot pain, from that. I would maybe see if you can incorporate any more time away, like, shorter breaks throughout the day, making sure that you're getting away from your desk at your workstation as well. Yeah, other than that, I would just make sure that you have a mat to stand on if you're using a stand-up workstation as well.
Also, maybe go to your doctor because that might be like,
Yeah, that could be the sign of something else. Yeah,
yeah.
because usually people are having discomfort and pain from being at their desk for long periods of time, not usually from getting away from their desk. So,
So going back to the blue lights real quickly, somebody asked not about the glasses, but about the computer screen covers.
mhm.
If you can talk about those.
Yeah, some of them are referred to like as a privacy screen. There's like an anti-glare screen protector that you can put on your actual monitor. I've seen a lot of people that have those. I had one in a previous department years and years ago, just for privacy, but it basically, it reduced the glare of the lighting above. Also, maybe changing where the position of where your monitors are might help with that. Because sometimes if the light is from above glaring onto your computer screen, just changing your monitor wherever it's positioned may help with that. But usually it's referred to, I think, as in like an anti-glare screen or a glare reducing screen cover type thing. And usually they just fit right over your screen, your monitor screen.
If a standing desk is too expensive, do you have recommendations for other options or equipments that could create a standing desk?
You can actually get a standing desk itself where the whole desk moves up and down, or you can get a standing desk attachment, which they're a lot less expensive than an actual standing desk. And it basically sits on top of your desk. And sometimes they have different, they may just have one adjustable height, or they may have separate ones, one for your keyboard and one for your monitor. But those are actually a lot less expensive than the actual standing desk itself. I don't really recommend usually making a homemade sort of stand-up station because they don't seem to be very sturdy. Whereas the stand-up workstations and the actual stand-up attachments are made specifically for that. They're made to hold the monitors, they're made to hold the keyboard, things like that. I've seen some people that put boxes on their desk and have different sort of setups. I don't normally recommend that, just because it's really not safe. The monitors are going to end up falling off your desk, or you're going to end up dropping something on your foot, and that leads to a whole nother realm of incidents and injuries. So I would suggest, if you can't, if your department can't fund an actual stand-up desk, I would see if there's a stand-up desk attachment maybe that you can sit on top of your desk. You may check with surplus to see if there's something over there at surplus. You may even check somewhere within your department. They may have things like that floating around that you may be able to use. Even I've found that people, have left workstations and that stuff's just sitting there. So, I would always check with someone in your department, see if there's something like that available, maybe your IT person or someone that handles those type of things, to see if there might be something like that floating around that you could use or switch out.
See, any more questions? Where is surplus? I believe surplus is located by Lake Alice. Let me see if I can find that.
It's over in that area. It's where the motor pool is. I forget what road that is, but it's in that area, Lake Alice area. They have a website, and I think you can access that from the UF website. It's if you type in UF surplus.
There, I dropped the link in the chat.
Thank you. Yeah, they actually there's lots of office furniture over there. They have chairs, they have desk. You'd be surprised the things that you'd find over there. I actually recently went over there and got a new chair for my office. So, well, a newly used chair, but that's in great condition. So there's lots of things over there. That's another option, if your department does not have the funds to invest in new chairs, new desk, things like that.
Yeah, and you can either your department can either purchase through there, or sometimes they also sell things just
Yes,
to,
an
I know
option. Yes.
during COVID, I know multiple people that bought desks and computers and things for themselves.
Yeah, it's a great outlet. I actually go over there. I've been over there quite a few times since I've been doing ergonomics.
Yeah, I know somebody that bought a car from them. So
Yeah, oh yeah, they have everything over there.
yeah, they really do.
Mhm.
What do we look for in an adjustable standing desk?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What should we look for in an adjustable standing desk?
Adjustable standing desk, you want to make sure that it's sturdy, number one. And number two, it's helpful if you have the settings where you can save. Once you get it to where it works for you in a sitting position and a standing position. For instance, I have the buttons that I can actually press it and save it. So it automatically remembers that. So I don't have to manually type in those numbers, if you have a digital display, for your desk. And it automatically goes to those heights, whether I'm sitting or standing, when I press the button. So that's very helpful. That way you don't have to try and manually figure it out every time you move from sitting to standing. Obviously, if you have a stand-up desk attachment, you're just going to basically lift that up and lower it back down every time you stand up and sit down. But other than that, I mean, I would say as long as it's sturdy and if it has settings that you can save, I would definitely do that. That way you don't have to figure it out every time you sit down and stand back up again. But there's lots of different ones available. So there's not really any specific kind or one, just make sure that it's sturdy, good quality.
And would the same apply to those adjustable ones? Like the ones you would just put on
Yes,
top of your
yes,
desk?
yes, there's definitely, there's quite a few that you can get out there. I mean, I found some good ones on Amazon, but there are some more expensive ones that you can get through the office supply stores. Just make sure that it's sturdy, it's good quality, because you want to be able to lift it up and have it stay in that position and not have it move around while you're typing on the keyboard. So it needs to be a good quality, a heavier material, so that you can actually have a substantial, sturdy workspace to work in. And you want to make sure that sometimes they come with like adjustments, that you can make them over time. They might loosen just a little bit, so you would have to have like the little adjustments to make them tighter, because over time they might start to kind of lower on their own. So you want to make sure that usually they have the little the wrenches that go with them to adjust them. So that's something, but there's lots of good ones out there, and they just sit on top of your desk, and you'll raise them, you'll lift them up on both sides. Some of them even have a button that you can press to lower it and raise it.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions. Last call for questions before we wrap it up. We're almost at the hour. Or do you have anything else you would like to add, Julie?
No, other than the fact, like I mentioned earlier, take a look at our website. We've got a lot of helpful information on there. We've also got the pamphlet brochure that goes over some important settings adjustments that you can do on your own. Some tips, ergonomic tips, ideas for you. And if all else fails, if you're having issues, if you're having discomfort or pain and you've tried everything on the website, you can fill out the ergonomic evaluation request. And then basically we would set up an appointment. I'll come out and I'll evaluate your workstation and I'll see what I can recommend to improve your workstation.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Julie, and thank you everybody for joining us today. As I mentioned, this is being recorded, so we'll upload it to our YouTube channel and send you guys the link once it's ready for you if you want to, go back and listen to the information again. Okay.
All right. Thank you.